Welcome to Inclusive Gathering Birmingham. My name is Danielle and my pronouns are she, her. If you haven't been with us before, Inclusive Gathering is an inclusive and affirming faith community. I think what's unique about us is that we're on what we call the road to radical inclusion, and that means we kind of acknowledge that lots of us are different from one another. We have different experiences of life, we have different things that are hard, different things to celebrate. And we believe that it's a really fundamental part of our spirituality to learn how those differences intersect with one another and how we can love one another better. And that means sometimes getting things wrong and being brave to do that and being brave to say we're sorry. And that means also just listening and learning from one another. So we've been doing this series recently on inclusion and just doing some deep dives into some of the different areas of inclusion that are important to us. And so today we're talking about disability and inclusion. David's going to be talking to us about that in a little bit, drawing a lot on his own story. This is just kind of the very first step into this area, and by no means are we going to cover every element of this today. But this is just our first kind of walk through, and we look forward to having more guests and more wisdom from folks that have lived experience in this area to help us to grow and to learn how to welcome and just how to celebrate the different gifts that we've got. So whether you're gay or straight, whatever your gender identity, whatever your race or ethnicity, your ability or disability, your neurodiversity, your neurotypicalness, education, theology, whether you think God is real, whether you're not sure, we want you to know that this is a safe place to be with us, or we want to make it a safe place for you to be who you are right now. There's no need to put on any pretense about what you think or what you don't think. And we just hope you find this to be a place where you can explore and learn with others. So that's all for me for now. We're going to hand over for some music.
Hi, my name is Vanessa and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a relatively new member of the Inclusive Gathering. As part of our regular worship gathering, we have what we call a question for sharing to give people a moment to connect with each other. So I'm going to ask you all a question, and as I share my answer, you can also share yours in the comments on Facebook Live or on YouTube. So the question today is, how have you seen new skills or giftings emerge from unexpected or difficult life experience? Personally, I moved from Germany to the UK 5 years ago, and in search for a church community, I accidentally ended up at a very conservative and evangelical congregation, which was very opposite to the more open and liberal faith expressions that I was used to. And I stayed there for about 2 years, and I had a lot of discussions and disagreements about theology with people in the congregation. And what made this situation so difficult was that these were some of the only people I knew outside of work in Birmingham. So I was forced to work those things through in relationship with people. So in that time, I learned to listen and communicate with people who disagree with me better. And I think God has definitely helped me reduce how much and how harshly I judge others through that experience.
Hi, I'm Lizzie, and I'm a member of Inclusive Gathering. Today I'm going to be reading a prayer, A Liturgy for Disability by Stephanie Tate. Let us pray. God, our Creator, reveal the ways we have discounted the beauty of your intentionally diverse design. Show us the ways we ignore our privilege and claim credit for your heavenly mercies as personal accomplishment. God of love, show us the ways we have excluded disabled bodies from our tables, from our pews, and from our pulpits. Reveal the ways we have discounted the giftings of disabled people. Teach us how to make a place where they are not only welcome to receive, but where they are empowered to serve, teach, and lead as well. Show us how to wholly welcome disabled bodies in our churches, homes, and communities. Teach us to better honour them for their vital role in your kingdom. Lord, use us to bring justice for those who are disabled, whether in our church, in our community, or throughout the world. We pray that they would experience dignity, acceptance, and belonging. Let the change begin with us. Rid us of the sin of ableism, and lead us in the way of your justice, on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.
In just a moment, David's going to be coming to join us to talk about disability and inclusion, and he's asked that we read this scripture from the Gospel of John, chapter 10. Now, the Gospel of John is one of 4 stories about Jesus' life that are in the Bible that are written from different perspectives and bring out different nuances of the story. So this is John chapter 10, verses 7 to 16. So he explained to them, I tell you the truth. I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me. Just as my Father knows me, and I know the Father. So I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in the sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and they will be one flock with one shepherd.
Hi everyone, I'm David. I'm going to run through a few of my thoughts from my experience about inclusion and disability. So how does John 10:10, some of which we just heard read, where Jesus said, "I've come so that everyone would have life and have it to its fullest," fit with my experience, to have life and to live it to the full? So I was born with a cleft lip and palate. This can affect breathing, eating, drinking, speech, teeth, sinus, and commonly issues with hearing, as well as various other complications. But certainly, as well as the physical challenges that this can give personally, a challenge too is how this affects treatment from society. So having a face that maybe doesn't conform to societal norms, teeth that are scattered around my mouth, or a bent weird shaped nose, and a voice that can be very quiet and not clear. I mean, I've encountered a surprising amount of barriers through my life, especially more than maybe the appearance stuff, but the speech and the verbal communications, as well as visual appearance, seem to be something that society has real difficulty with when they're not conforming to what might be the norms. For example, my personality is really sort of generally outgoing, but I'm often seen as maybe the quiet one or potentially shy, which isn't the case. It's just that, in all the noise, sometimes you can't hear my voice. Certainly in the past, in those situations where it's a bit noisy, I might just withdraw and just get on with my own things, because people just couldn't hear what I'm saying. I make a bit more of an effort now, and those who know me, later on I'll talk about how I've had to learn to speak in different ways. If I am being too quiet, just give me a nudge, because I can remember how to project my voice again and try that. So, but certainly, before I learned all that and had various interventions, actually my voice was really quiet, and that was definitely a challenge for doing things. So all that meant that, in my early life especially, things were potentially difficult, I suppose. I was fortunate to have a really supportive and loving family behind me, excellent parents who were really supportive, gave me a firm foundation, and also actually at that time a really good faith community. But that said, my teenage years were difficult, as with many people with my situation. School, for example, was very cool, although I did have a really good small group of friends made up from other folk who maybe weren't popular or were different to the majority. And at that time, certainly, in this context, my faith was developing to give me that inner peace and contentment, I suppose would be a good word, in who I am and how I was made. There's a passage in the Bible that helped me. It's from Psalm 40. It says, "I waited patiently, Lord, for you to hear my prayer. You listened, and you pulled me out from a lonely pit. You let me stand on a rock with my feet firm. You gave me a new song, a song of praise to you." And there's a song by U2, the band, that would go around my head a lot when I felt low or needed a bit of drive to push through something. The fact that, God listened, and he gave me a firm foundation to stand on. Then, so there's been a few key moments in my life. I suppose one was around 15. I had an experience where I sort of really felt God saying to me that in the future I'd be able to speak better and actually begin to lead things and be sort of a person out there to do things, including leading things like singing in a band. To me at the time that seemed impossible. My speech was definitely not clear at that point, and my voice was very quiet and squeaky, for want of a better word. Well, I did love playing guitar, which many of you know I really enjoy doing that. Around that time too, so I sort of had that happen, someone shared with me some other verses. So this is from another part of the Bible called Jeremiah in the Old Testament, Jeremiah 1, 5-7, and it says this: I'm your creator, and before you were born, I chose you to speak for me to the nations. I said, but I'm not a good speaker. Lord, I'm too young. Don't say you're too young, the Lord answered. If I tell you to go and speak to someone, then go, and I will tell you what to say. Don't leave out a word. I promise to be with you and to keep you safe, so do not be afraid. So that those verses to me again were important. So, and this experience then, in my teenage years gave me that real firm drive to really push and try and achieve the best that I could be. As a result, I was able to get to university. And uni life actually, as many may experience, can be really inclusive, and it was for me. I was able to do things like actually achieve a position where I represented my part of the university on the Student Union Council, for example, which, a few years ago I'd never ever thought I'd be able to do that, but actually, that inclusive environment enabled me to be involved with that. It was just so good to be, certainly in that stage of my life, appreciated for sort of my brain, my personality, and not for the things that other people might see as barriers. So today's topic, it's titled Disability and Inclusion. I've given an overview of my earlier life, but how does inclusion work in the world I'm in now? So, grown adult, not getting any younger, but there's a few things to think about here. So, for example, in the world of work, so take my workplace, for example. I've been fortunate to be able to get the opportunity to get the qualifications I needed to get into the career that I always wanted to do. So what I wanted to do since my early teens, I've been able to achieve that. But we're thinking about the businesses I work for. So generally they've been large, they're providing an essential service for the UK. But what's interesting here is the journey within the company to give opportunity for folk who have disabilities or differences. So, I had a really good job. I found it really difficult to progress in the company. I found I'd often be like second for roles, so the nearly made it person. And there'd always be a reason given why, even though, on paper and from the feedback I get from interviews, I was better qualified, I had better experience and more contacts, but yet someone less able maybe would be getting these roles. So then actually in my 30s, I had to have my face rebuilt due to issues with my cleft. That included moving my jaw, various bone grafts, moving my teeth, and also learning a new way of speaking. So the way you hear me today is pretty much how I had to relearn how to talk as a result of all that changing shape of my face. This took several years, and I was very lucky to have the NHS and my family, and my workplace actually through that were really supportive through the process, although obviously a big challenge as an adult when it comes to family and job commitments to go through that sort of treatment. But interestingly, so having done that, and if you think about that picture of the world of work before that happened, what I found when I emerged from that treatment pathway was really interesting. So in this big company I worked for, they had lots of courses looking at things like unconscious bias, lots of training for managers, campaigns to ensure that the culture and the company was doing the right thing for those with disabilities, which actually were all really, really good stuff, and some of which I fed into as well. As a work community, the atmosphere was really good. But as soon as I was through that treatment pathway, my face has changed to sort of how you see it today. My nose is a bit straighter, my teeth are a bit straighter, and I can talk in a louder, more clear way. Suddenly these roles that, when I'd apply for a job that looked interesting, I knew I could do, I actually started to get them. And my career, I've been very fortunate that my career since then has moved on really well. So, but looking back, why is this? and the same brain, same skills, same capability to do the roles. But despite all the great work within the company, the barriers are still there, although they are improving nowadays. But the fact that now my face has changed a bit and I can talk clearer, I'm suddenly able to do things at work I couldn't before, and it shouldn't really have been like that. I should have been able to do that before. But and then maybe if one of the things actually really positive through my treatment pathway, as well as obviously ending up like I am today, is that since my operations, I've been involved with a charity called the Cleft Lip and Palate Association. This is a small charity that does amazing things for those born with clefts in the UK. And in fact, this week, 8th to the 16th of May, so 9th of May, right in the middle, is actually the awareness week for Cleft Lip and Palate. So here's my Cleft Lip and Palate Association. An awareness week is about celebrating, in fact their tag is celebrating differences, and not only how we look and sound, but also the experiences that make us who we are. And I'll see if we can get a link up for that. But related to me and inclusion, as far as that goes, so 3 years ago, Clapper set up an adult services project. I was involved with some of that to specifically identify the needs of adults born with clefts. So since the mid-2000s, the NHS had a really good setup called cleft teams. So cleft teams have a better way of doing interventions than maybe in the past. However, those are older, so adults like myself wouldn't have had that support. Certainly, we can go back in and get it now. But there's lots of adults out there living with significant challenges, and they don't realise what support's available. As a result, Clapper commissioned a piece of research, which apparently was the biggest in the world, so really fortunate to be involved with that, to study the challenges adults have with clefts in the UK. So that was with the Centre for Appearance Research at University of West of England. And Clapper did a whole life survey looking at the medical and health experiences, emotional well-being, bullying, discrimination, dating, intimacy, genetics, etc. for adults with a cleft. And thinking back to my work challenges, so I mentioned that just now, it's interesting that one of the things that came up was one of the findings: adults with clefts tend to be many years behind in their careers compared to the general population. Obviously that's similar to my own personal experience. But interestingly for me, so part of the study looked at the mental health of adults with a cleft. So nearly 50% reporting diagnosis of depression or anxiety, and self-worth was found to be significantly lower in adults with cleft when compared to the general population. And I've certainly had those times of doubting my own self-worth. But the finding that chimed with me most from all that work was that many people felt that being born with a cleft had made them a stronger person and more resilient, and could take many of life's other challenges in their stride. And I feel like I have that resilience, which has been sort of tested at times, but definitely there. So how do I feel about my inclusion experience today? So personally, I'm in a better place than ever, some of which due to the medical interventions that have softened the effect of my cleft and thus eased some of the societal barriers. I know, excuse me, I know I'm very fortunate to have this. I think also I have that inner contentment that I'm made the way that I'm made. So I do still get frustrated when I might not be seen as one of the cool kids, or I get forgotten, or my contributions aren't valued and sort of get bumped, or situations where I'm not appreciated or recognised, where others maybe are for the same things. And I think that, for me, now these are mostly blips along the way, when in the past they were probably mountains. And in my faith context, it's that whatever others think about me, I know that God has made me and loves me this way. Throughout my life, the foundation of my inner peace and contentment has been my faith. The passages we've looked at today are some of the ones that keep me grounded in that love that God has for me, as I am. So John 10:10, live life to the full. This is strapline as well for Christian Surfers, the organisation. And many of you know that I'm involved with them. And again, it's so good in that community to be accepted for who I am, just as me. No other things involved. And can I live life to the full? Oh yes, I can. God's a genius. He made us all different, which is to be celebrated. My faith foundation grounds me that I know that God made me and loves me as I am. God wants me to be me, the person that God formed and made, who can empathise with others, use the gifts and talents I've been gifted, have that resilient personality that can be calm in a crisis, be open to admit failings, open to share experiences, and aware that there is still a journey to go on to learn more about what it is to be a better human and to show God's love with others and to myself. I'm hugely grateful for the inclusive community here and happy to talk this through more on the Zoom later. And I'll leave you with these passages. I patiently waited, Lord, for you to hear my prayer. You listened and pulled me from the lonely pit. You let me stand on a rock with my feet firm. And Jesus said, I came so that you would have life and life in its fullest. I am the good shepherd. I know you and you know me. So, see you at 5:15.
A few years ago, there was a documentary on Radio 4 by a broadcaster named Damon Rose, who's blind. And the documentary was called Pick Up Your Stretcher and Walk. And it was drawn on his experience of meeting Christians who were just would, without permission, lay their hands on him and pray for his healing. And what a disconcerting experience this was. So he calls himself an open-minded non-believer, and so he's not coming from a Christian faith perspective, but he kind of dug in and decided to explore faith perspectives on healing. And it was quite a powerful documentary that got a lot of discussion at the time when it came out in 2019. We're going to show a little clip of an interview with Damon Rose and also with Reverend Zoe Hemming, who is sometimes wheelchair user. And they were interviewed by Justin Brierley also a couple of years ago. And they have quite an interesting conversation about the different perspectives on faith and healing and disability. So this is just a short section of a longer interview that we thought was really relevant and useful to our conversation today about disability.
I had been approached by a Christian who wanted to heal me.
This was just in sort of in public that you were approached by someone you'd obviously never met before.
That's right. And I was quite surprised because I went to blind when I lost my sight. I went to boarding school for blind kids, and I have a lot of blind friends and disabled friends, and it's a big thing in our community. You know, we know if someone says, "Oh God," a Christian come up to me the other day. You know, they're like, "Oh God," they understand
right,
what I mean by that.
You're not alone in this particular fact that you've been approached randomly by people wanting to pray for you.
Yeah. Whereas in the office, none of my colleagues, none of whom are disabled, knew anything about this, and they were quite shocked, horrified that someone would jump into my life, take my attention away, and want to try and heal me. Even though they didn't know me, they thought it was presumptuous. They thought it was a bit unpleasant, rude, and that is, I guess, that is how I feel. You know, when I'm walking down the street, quite happy, just trying to get to the shop, and somebody stops me. And says, "Have you ever heard of Jesus?" Which, of course, I've heard of Jesus. You just start thinking to yourself, "Oh goodness me, they're going to heal me." They think very little of me. Right. They assume that I must have a terrible life and that it needs fixing.
You say this in both the article and the documentary, that it feels a bit like when people ask you, "Can I pray for you for healing?" It's like you're being seen as a sort of project that needs fixing in that way, and you'd find that somewhat disrespectful of your personal dignity, that sort of thing.
I've been singled out as someone who must need help and who must need, I guess, a miracle.
And there's very obvious ways then in which churches, there are things that your disability means that you can't engage in the service in the way that everyone else does in that way. I mean,
can I just say as well, standing up and sitting down.
Right. So tell us about that.
It can
not
be
knowing when to do it.
Yeah.
Not knowing if everyone
else has sat
hasn't.
down and I'm left standing up.
Oh no.
Oh dear. You don't want that to happen.
That's the thing. I mean, what would help in that situation? Would just clearer directions from the person leading the service help? Is it just that it's helpful if people just take the initiative around you to say, we're sitting down now, or whatever it might be?
It'd be nice if the person at the front would say, all stand, all sit, just something like that.
But I find it really difficult when people say things like "let's stand to declare our faith." People who can't stand are in. I've never felt more lonely than in church when everybody does.
I was recently at a big Christian event, and good on them. They give some training ahead of time of when you're engaging with people who have disabilities, what's helpful and what's not. And one of the things they're very clear on for speakers is if you're inviting people to stand, please make clear it's stand if you're able to do so. This isn't a command for everyone.
If you are comfortably able is the phrase that we are that I've found myself using, because there is such a culture of peer pressure and not wanting to get things wrong. And even Damon, who would be a visitor in your mind, I guess, feeling that real peer pressure and stigma. And actually it took years before I would allow myself to sit down in church because I thought it was showing a lack of love for God.
Right.
Somehow we've connected loving God with being willing to suffer, and that's terrible and really sad. So stand if you're comfortably able. I became a wheelchair user in 2010, 2011, and I'm a part-time wheelchair user because I have a nerve damage. So it's a chronic pain issue that some days is so awful I can't walk. It's all about gravity being my enemy, so I need to sit rather than stand, and one of the tools for pain management is not walking. But on a day like today, I'm on legs. It varies a lot. But in terms of the impact on my life, it's been absolutely profound in every way. In terms of the practical way I just get about. But I had to completely reconsider everything I'd previously been taught about prayer, about a good way to live, about vocation, about calling, about what I have to offer, mothering, everything.
So you've already said that your approach to healing has changed, the way you think about it quite a lot with your own experience, obviously. I mean, in what ways has that changed? And do you still believe that God does, if you like, heal in very obviously tangible physical ways, people leaving their wheelchair and walking and being healed and so on? And I'd love to hear about your own experience of what you felt was a deeper sense of healing as well in your own life. Sure.
I probably start all of this by saying that 100% my faith that God can and does do unexpected things hasn't changed.
Okay.
What has changed though is my hesitance to say that cure is not the norm. When we pray for people to get better physically, whatever that is ailing them, that usually doesn't happen. And the reason I'm really passionate about saying that a bit more is because I think there's been a culture of what felt like to me the emperor's new clothes, and I think actually Christians lose a kind of legitimate voice in a perfectly reasonable question to ask. And I think Damon articulates it well, and perhaps shouldn't be so worried about upsetting people because you don't do that with that question, because I think Christians need to be having these conversations too, because when I first came to faith, we were part of a very big charismatic evangelical free church, and at that stage I had 4 days a week of migraines. It was very disabling, and I was prayed for on numerous occasions. I was anointed with oil. You read that passage from James, and when you're ill, that's what you do, and by his stripes you are healed, etc., etc. And there was a great deal of passion and fervour about that, and I was repeatedly prayed for and never experienced any kind of healing. And as a new Christian, that left me really vulnerable, because there was a sense of frustration from those who were praying for me. And it was really difficult and there was definitely well, if you have enough faith, then you will be. And I really think we need to be talking about that stuff, the kind of name it, claim it theology, because I think it's dangerous and it turns God into a dispenser rather than something far more holistic, far more radical, actually, because elderly people in wheelchairs, I bet, don't get prayed for very often.
Right.
Because it's a sense of, well, no, we're all right with you dying, or we're all right with you not being fully able. So there's this really weird ableist kind of expectation.
What? I mean, you were featured in the documentary, actually holding a healing service, though. So what does that look like now in your church, Zoe?
In our church, it looks like been really deliberate about saying, yeah, we're all limited, and what a blessed relief it is that there's a power beyond me to shape my life. And that sense of surrender to God, that surrender to something beyond ourselves, a surrender of our own expectations about what we should and shouldn't be. And that is, I think, an incredibly powerful thing. And it's also amazingly good news, because, you know, when we do that, when we say, no, it's not about my power, it's not about what I can do, there's something which then helps you to love your neighbour quite a lot more easily as well.
You're not afraid of our questions. You're not offended by our fear. And we just really want to trust you. Oh, so we bring what we have. Will you meet us here? Lord, you have told us you're for us. You're for us, even when we don't understand. Even when we don't understand. And we are leaning on that promise. Believing you are who you say. Believing you are who you say you are. See us for our failures. Hey, you always find the best in us. Hey, we've been straight, but you are faithful.
I'm Nets. And at Inclusive Gathering Birmingham, every week we do something called a love feast. And today we're sharing some food. You can see we're outside in the floating front room in Southwood Park, and I thought it would be nice to come out here and what was supposed to be maybe more sunshine, but just enjoy the lovely day. And just sharing food together is something that is really important to our community, and so this is something that we like to do. And so today I've got, this is a, what do you call this, a cinnabuffin? Cinnabuffin. Mine is blueberry.
And mine is lotus biscuit.
And I have a latte here.
And I've got a cappuccino.
Yes. So if you'd like, in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, you can share what you're eating and drinking with us. So I'd just like to say a quick blessing over this. Lord, we give thanks for the food and drink that we're able to share here today. And we just give thanks for the blessings of the community. And we look forward to the day when we can come together and eat and drink in person. We give thanks for all your bounty, Lord. Amen. Let's eat.
My mama told me when I was young, we are all born superstars. She rolled my hair and put my lipstick on in the glass of her boudoir. There's nothing wrong with loving who you are, she said, 'cause it makes you perfect, babe. So hold your head up, girl, and you go far. Listen to me when I say I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret, just love yourself and you said I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Oh, baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Oh, there ain't no other way. Oh, baby, I was born this way. On the right track, baby, I was born this way. Give yourself prudence and love your friends. Subway kid, shows your truth. In the religion of the insecure, I must be myself, respect my youth. There's different lover, it's not a sin, believe. Can't live each I am, hey, hey, hey. And life, I love this record, and me, I'm over every yeah. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret, just love yourself and you said I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Oh, baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Oh, baby, I was born this way. Right track, baby, I was born this way. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret, just love yourself and you said I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way, 'cause baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Ooh, there ain't no
thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to head over to Zoom at 5:15, David will be there to kind of lead some conversation around some of the subjects from today. And there's also going to be some kind of casual hangout spaces for those who just want to meet some friends. So yeah, we'll share the link here below, and you're very welcome to come along. You can turn your camera on or off, whatever makes you feel comfortable. It's fine if you're new to us and you just want to observe. That's completely fine. You need to be logged into Zoom to be able to access it, though, just for security reasons. Next week, we are going to be doing our gathering live on Zoom, and we have some special guests again, some friends of mine from Mother to Christians. Dr. Sally Mann and Luke Larner, who was with us not very long ago, are going to be talking about faith and the class divide. Luke and Sally are both from working class backgrounds and are also theologians that have kind of navigated this strange world of academia, faith, and class, and they've got some tremendous insights to help us to think about inclusion around how class impacts that. And again, this is one of those that will be probably an ongoing conversation as we learn more about this area, but Sally and Luke are great, so you'll enjoy that, I think. Also, the following week from that, on the 30th of May, we're going to be doing one of our book clubs. So we try every month or so to focus our session around a book or a podcast. And that is the kind of thing where you can either listen or read something ahead of time if you'd like to, but you can also just turn up and get something out of our time without that. So we are going to be looking at Azariah France Williams' Ghost Ship, which is about institutional racism in the church. And we'll having some conversation about that. It's part of our ongoing conversation about race and inclusion and the different aspects of things that we need to address and be honest about. So we're looking forward to having that conversation. And then, of course, on the 6th of June, you've probably seen some emails and posts about it. That is the day that we're going to be doing our first hybrid gathering of Inclusive Gathering, which means some of us will be meeting in person at the church at Cars Lane, and some of us will be online like this. And it's a bit experimental and we're getting ready for it, but we're excited to find a way to include all of us together, whether you're comfortable being or able to be with us in person or not. So the gathering will be integrated between the two different mediums, and we'll see how that goes. It's one of those things that we're going to learn from, and we'll keep adapting and growing and changing. But what you need to be aware of is that if you'd like to join us in person in the church at Cars Lane, you need to register on Eventbrite, and there's a link in the Facebook event and on the website for how to do that, because we need to keep to a certain number of people that are in the room. We'll be sharing more about that and also doing some videos of what it will look like to physically join us and what to expect if you've not been before, or you have been, but none of us have been in a while, so there can be a little bit of apprehension about what to expect. No pressure at all to come along if that's not something you're ready to do yet, but that's going to become an option that we'll start to ease into, and that will be the first Sunday of each month in person, and we'll continue our online gatherings other than that. Also, just wanted to mention that if you are a regular part of Inclusive Gathering Birmingham, you might want to participate in worship here by giving. So you can go to our website, inclusivegathering.org.uk/give, and just for lots of us that are part of this community, there are ongoing costs, whether that's things like the food boxes that we did a few weeks ago over Easter, or just simply stuff like getting the tech in place for the 6th of June, or paying people that work here. So if you're able to contribute to that, that would be wonderful. There's no pressure to do that, certainly not if you're just a visitor. Just feel free to enjoy and relax. If you've got any questions about that, feel free to get in touch with us too at newchurchbirmingham@gmail.com. I'm going to finish now with the blessing that we share every week. May we live fully, may we love wastefully, and may we have the courage to be all that God has created us to be. We'll see you soon on Zoom.